Okay, I think the live stream is back on. This is the continuation of the Brandon Rainwater v. Markies Deandre Conway, DC 20-02221. We went off the record in order to take a short break. Before we begin with the next witness, the court is just so excited that we have so many observers of this court process. However, the bottom of the screen, it clearly states, do not record. It's been reported to the court that these court proceedings are being replicated on the YouTube site by Duke, Faro, Leak Mob D. I'm hereby notifying you that you are in violation of the court's rules. There is no recording. You must stop immediately. The court will be issuing show cause notices to both Duke, Faro, Link Mob D, and Negative A Sharp. I believe that was the one that was who had recorded our court proceedings yesterday. A show cause order means that you will be directed to come to this court to explain to me why you violated the court's rules, why, in spite of the sticker that says do not record, you have done so. I suggest that you get legal counsel because you will be sanctioned up to and including being placed in jail. So please, I'm asking you, follow the court's rules. Immediately stop your replication of the hearing of this trial on your individual YouTube channels. Again, that's including Duke Faro, Link Mob D, and anyone else who's decided that they want to do this, because you are now in contempt of court. Thank you. Your next witness, Mr. Mathias.
Thank you, Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Vanessa Iu.
All right. Do you mind taking an oath? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Miss Iu. You can still say good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, it's Vanessa Iu.
Okay. And do you mind if I call you Vanessa?
Yes, that's
okay.
Fine.
Vanessa, how old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay. And where are you from?
Plano, Texas.
Okay. Born and raised?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your highest level of education?
Master's degree.
And what do you have a master's degree in?
I have a master's in business administration, specifically a major in accounting and minor in finance.
And what educational institutions did you attend of higher level education?
Undergrad, I went to University of Texas at Austin. Master's degree, I did Southern Methodist University, and I apologize for my voice. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold.
And Ms. Ibuike, how long have you known Brandon Rainwater?
I've known Brandon since 2013, so a little bit over 11 years, going on 12.
Okay. And what is the nature of your association with Brandon Rainwater?
Yes, I'm his personal assistant.
Okay. And can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what's entailed in being Mr. Rainwater's personal assistant?
Yes, I handle basically all of his logistics. I take care of his booking of hotels, flights, and other arrangements in regards to both business and personal life. I also advise him on several different topics.
Okay. Business related?
Business related and personal related.
Okay. And let me ask you, can you, being associated with Mr. Rainwater, I assume you have some knowledge with regards to the music industry, hip hop industry in Dallas, Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Can you generally describe your understanding of what was going on in 2020 and shortly before then in the Dallas hip hop music scene?
Yes, actually, the Dallas hip hop music scene was on the rise at that time. It had been a while since we had like a real hit in the city of Dallas. Before both Yellow Beezy and Mo3 were starting to get worldwide acclaim. I think before that, the biggest hit that we had was from Dero Music.
Okay. And can you describe the relationship between Yellow Beezy's camp and Mo3's camp?
At the time, it was very agitated. It was it was definitely starting to get a little bit more hostile.
And to your knowledge, was Mr. Rainwater involved in any of those hostilities?
No, Brandon really tried to stay away from any type of hostility, specifically when it came to Mo3. He was the primary person who would have to go into the different show bookings by himself. Usually it would be him and maybe the only other person that would go in with him would be me. So he really tried to keep the peace at all times because he knew that he'd be going into hostile environments with no protection. So he tried to stay away from any type of like aggression or frustrations within the industry in the city.
And what brought you to say where you were with Brandon on the night of January the 25th, 2020?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And what were you doing with Brandon on the night of January the 25th, 2020?
We were actually celebrating Mo3's Grammy nomination. They had just got back from California, LA specifically. So we decided to go out just to celebrate.
Okay. And where did you go out? Can you run me through so you ultimately ended up in the area of Empire Central and Stemmons, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And run us through how you ended up in that area from the beginning.
So yeah, so when we went to celebrate, we actually first went to like Deep Ellum area. And from there, once the night had ended, Brandon had suggested that we go to a few of the strip clubs to do some promotion, like basically like street work. That's how we ended up going to Ecstasy at first.
Okay. And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that just kind of what is the importance in terms of going to places like strip clubs for promotion purposes?
Definitely. So the reason why it's so important, it's kind of like with a politician where they're shaking hands and kissing babies. You go to the strip club to really put your face there to the DJs as well as the dancers because that's where music gets played a lot and it gets broken. Oftentimes you'll see people in the crowd, they'll start to like, at the time we were doing Shazam and like trying to figure out, okay, what song is that? I really like the beat or I really like what this person's saying. So going to those late night clubs is really like fundamental for an artist, especially when you're trying to push a scene.
Okay. And y'all ultimately did not end up going into Ecstasy, correct?
No, we did not.
Okay. And you and Brandon discussed going to V Live instead?
Correct.
Okay. And run us through the process of logistics of how you guys would end up at V Live.
Yes, so I had valeted the car. I was the one who drove us that night. So I had valeted the car. Brandon didn't want to wait for the car to come around because there was quite a bit of a line. It was still kind of early in the night. So he had told me that, hey, I'm just going to walk over and it's very close. It's less than a 2-3 minute walk from Ecstasy to V Live. So when he said he was going to walk, I was wearing heels. So I was like, well, I'm going to get the car because I don't want to walk, to be honest with you. So I went to go get the car and I told him I'll just meet him there.
Okay. And can you run us through the point where you leave Brandon's presence and ultimately the next time that you see Brandon? So start from when you two leave each other and then the next time that you see Brandon, what happens?
Okay. So when he leaves, I take my ticket to the valet. I wait for the car. As I'm waiting for the car, it's I think maybe like let's say 2 to 3 minutes that I've been waiting. Finally, when I get the car, I try to call Brandon. I try to call him He doesn't answer. So I get in the car, I start driving again out of the parking lot and about to take a right on like basically the frontage road to get onto the highway. As I'm about to turn onto the frontage road, I try to call him again, basically like essentially I was trying to make sure I was going to be okay when I get to the front and like make sure he told them like, hey, my assistant's going to be coming, let her in. Like I didn't want to have any issues when I got to the front, basically. So I try to call him again as I'm exiting the parking lot. When I called him the second time, somebody else answered his phone. And when they answered his phone,
Let me stop you there.
and-
Vanessa. Did you recognize the voice of the person that answered Brandon's phone?
no, I didn't.
Okay. And what did that individual say?
So can I curse or do
Yes,
I need to like?
just exactly what
Okay,
you recall being said.
Okay, specifically what he said, and I apologize to everyone for my language, but specifically what they said was, Rainwater's been fucked up. You need to come get him quick. And then they hung up. So at that point, once they hung up, I kind of went into like panic mode and I started speeding down the frontage road. And like basically you have to go down the frontage road, make a U-turn at the highway, come back down, and then you'll hit a light, I believe one light, and then take a left and you hit another light before you get to the V Live area.
Okay. You can share with the witness what's been marked as exhibit 27. And while we have that pulled up, what was going through your mind when you that individual made that statement to you?
Honestly, I was really thinking the worst. I didn't know what could have happened because I had only been away from him maybe, let's say 10 minutes tops. So it's like, in my mind, it's like, how is it possible that he's so hurt that he can't even answer his phone? Like I can't fathom what could have taken place to the point where he can't even talk.
And I'm showing with the witness what's been marked as exhibit 27. And do we see the car? We see the car here on the left going through the intersection. Okay.
Yes.
And that would be your car.
Yes.
Okay. And that's the first time on that night that you had seen Brandon in that state, correct?
Yes.
Okay, keep on playing. Okay, and you stop at the corner of the road.
Yes.
Stop. Keep on going a little bit. Okay, stop. So Isibuwiki, is that you in the white coming out of the car?
Yes, that's me.
Okay. Press play. Stop. Okay, can you run us through what you recall when you first arrive on the scene, what you see and what you recall? Yeah, well, what you see.
Yeah, I see a bunch of people around Brandon, and Brandon's on the ground, and it's kind of like rocking side to side, grabbing his left side. And he just keeps saying that my leg is broken, my leg is broken. And then as I'm walking up, I asked him, I was like, what happened? Like, what's going on? And he was like, and like, in retrospect, I realized probably I was really annoying because it's like he literally couldn't walk, and I keep asking him these clarifying questions, and he's probably just like, just get me out of here. But like, at one point, he was just like, they jumped me, and I was like, well, who jumped you? And he was like, Yella, and I was like, why? And like at this point, he's like, Vanessa, stop asking questions, like get me out of here. And I was like, well, okay, stand up, like come on, let's go. I'm here now, get in the car. And he's like, I can't, my leg is broken. And I was like, how did they break your leg? And then that's when the one of the security officers who was standing over him said that honestly, he got what he deserved. He knew what was up. He got what was coming to him. And then at this point, I was like, well, can y'all help me get him in the car? If he can't stand up, like help me get him in the car then. And they're like, all right, we'll help you. And at the time, I thought the guy with the tactical gear on, I thought he was a police officer. So in my head, I'm like, okay, well, where is he? Like, can you arrest him or whatever? And Brandon told me like, no, we're not calling the police. Like, you're not call the police. And I should have known something like was really up then because Brandon doesn't typically tell me no. Like if I tell him to do something, he trusts my advice and he'll do it. So for him to tell me no in that situation, there's only one way that would cause him to tell me no, and that is indeed that he was fearing from something. Whatever, at this time, I didn't realize what it was because I'm still kind of in shell shock trying to figure out what happened. But the only way that he would ever tell me no is if he's in true fear for either his safety or my safety in that situation.
And run me through the process of well, anything else you recall being told to you by anybody over there?
One of the guys was holding his jacket. And he said, here, at the end, he handed it to me and he was like, here, this is his. And then I grabbed it. And then there was another gentleman, he's not pictured in this video, but he came up after the fact and he was saying something, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of like, yeah, Yella took care of him, like he got him. And he was saying, and that's when I responded back to him like, oh, like you feel that you're tough talking to someone who can't even walk. Like, how do you feel comfortable with that? And then he kind of got in my face, basically saying that he was gonna, excuse my language again, he said that he was gonna slap the shit out of me. And keep in mind, I'm thinking that this is a police officer next to me. So I basically told him like, hey, okay, do it. I'll put you in jail if you slap me right now. Like I dare you to. And then that's when Brandon was yelling at me, Vanessa, come on, like, you don't understand. They're going to shoot up your car. Like, get in the car now. They will shoot up your car.
And run me through the process of what you recall in terms of how Brandon ended up in the car.
I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 guys who picked him up, but like basically the security officers picked him up and they basically like a child put him into the car. He literally was immobile at that point.
Press play. Well, we have pictured here in 27 is ultimately what you've recounted here in terms of the conversations that you recall and Brandon ultimately being put into the car.
Yeah, so this guy walking up is the last guy that I was telling you about that got in my face. But at this point, you see me talking like, okay, well, help me get him in the car. Then after I've already asked all those questions. Yeah, so it was 3 of them that they're basically carrying him into the car as if he was a child, maybe, I don't know. And then they set him into the car. And this is when the other guy started telling me, and he was talking to Brandon while they're putting him in the car. And I told him like, hey, do you feel tough talking to someone who literally cannot walk right now? And then that's when he told me he would slap the crap out of me. And I told him, well, go ahead, do it. Like, I dare you to. And then at this point, that's when security kind of got in between us and was like, hey, no, calm down. Then Brandon's in the background yelling like, Vanessa, get in the car. They're going to shoot up the car. You don't know these people. They're with him. They're with him. And then I say a couple more things to the gentleman because he's still telling me that he would literally slap me. And then I get in the car and I eventually, you'll see me, I start to speed off.
Okay, so go ahead and press play. So you get him in the car and then you head out. Okay. And is that you leaving the scene?
Yes.
Okay. What's running through your mind at this time?
Well, when he said that they will shoot at my car, all that was running through my mind was I have to at least get out of this area as quickly as possible. I know that if I get on the highway, I have a better chance of getting away than staying in that area. So I was like, okay, let me just get on the highway as quickly as possible and let me get him to a hospital. So I GPS to the nearest hospital, which at the time, I think it was, I don't know if it's still there, but it was Baylor, Dallas, or it was some Baylor hospital that was maybe like 10, 15 minutes away.
And why did you choose Baylor, Dallas?
I just GPS nearest hospital, to be honest with you. I'm not too familiar with that area of Dallas. I grew up more north in Plano, so that's the area that I feel most comfortable with. But I knew that the way he was screaming and in pain, and keep in mind, he kept telling me his leg is broken. But in my mind, I'm like, there's no way these guys really broke your bone or like whatever happened, they didn't break your bone. Like, I still don't know what actually happened. So when he's saying that, I actually really thought he was exaggerating up until the point where we were in the hospital and the doctor actually told us like his bone was fractured. It wasn't to that point where I realized like, oh wow, like, because like in my mind then it's like, okay, if you can fracture a hip bone, you can fracture a skull. Like, what if instead of landing on his hip, he landed on his skull and he started like bleeding out in the middle of the street? Like,
Objections, Your Honor. She's not a medical expert and this is speculative, Your Honor.
Rephrase your question, Mr. Mathias.
Sure.
Sorry.
So, Ms. Ibuike, so you ultimately arrive at Baylor Dallas, correct?
correct.
Okay. And can you run me through, first off, what was Brandon's demeanor on the 10 to 15 minute drive over to Baylor Dallas?
The best way I could describe it is very fearful and very like borderline paranoia. He kept saying that there were people following us and that they were going to shoot up my car. They're going to get my license plate. Even if they don't get me today, they might get us another day. To the point where even like, I would say maybe 6 months to a year after the incident took place, I didn't feel comfortable going out in my car. I would basically Uber everywhere. I would ride with other people if we were to go out. And I definitely steered away from this area specifically because of it. But
Okay,
he was, sorry, go ahead.
Just specifically, we'll get to that, but just I'm asking just specifically about those 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, yeah. So the 10, 15 minutes, he was just very scared and in a lot of pain. He kept on screaming, like, my leg is broken, my leg is broken, like, and like making noises like, get me to the hospital quickly, just get me to the hospital. And he was saying stuff like that. And he was just in a lot of pain and very, very scared, honestly.
Okay. And when you get to Baylor Dallas, explain to me why you ultimately did not end up going to Baylor Dallas.
So when I pulled up to the Baylor Dallas, I started to get out and I opened the door for him to get him out of the car. And he looked up and he saw where we were and he just screamed at me like, no, Vanessa, no, get us out of here. We cannot stay here. And I was like, why? This is the closest hospital. And he was like, Vanessa, we are literally in the middle of their hood. Like this is where they feel comfortable. They will follow us here and they will finish the job basically. And I was like, okay, all right. So at that point I was okay, I can tell that he's not going to be willing to get out of the car at this location. So I just closed the door and I got back in the car. And I basically GPSed us to Plano, where I feel most comfortable. And I felt the safest. So as soon as I got on the highway and I got closer to Plano, I GPSed a hospital near Plano and it ended up taking us to Baylor in Plano.
And run me through how the demeanor, what you recall with Brandon in the back on that ride from Baylor Dallas to Baylor Plano.
Yeah, he was still very in a lot of pain and very scared. He kept looking up at the back seat, trying to see if anybody was following us, to the point where when he was lifting himself up to look, he would like wince because he was in pain. But he was very concerned about someone who's following us. He kept telling me I needed to drive faster. They could be following us. And a lot of the same thing, just he was very fearful that they were going to basically shoot up the car and like both of us would lose our lives that night.
And you arrive at Baylor Plano and Mr. Rainwater wasn't able to ambulate, correct?
Correct. I had to go inside and grab, I think it was a nurse's aide that was doing like the check-in process. And then she grabbed one of her colleagues to help get him out of the car and she brought a wheelchair for him.
Okay. And run me through your recollection of what went on at Baylor Plano.
Yeah, so Baylor Plano, we had to wait for a really long time. I just think they probably just don't have a lot of activity that late at night, to be honest with you. But we ended up having to wait a really long time. And during that whole time, Brandon was in so much pain, like so much pain. He kept asking, like, is there at least something that y'all can give me just to let the pain go a little bit? And they were like, no, we have to follow protocol essentially. Finally, when they finally got him admitted into a room, and they said that they were going to give him a scan, basically to see what was going on. And keep in mind, they asked us like what was wrong, and Brandon still is under the impression that his leg is broken. So he said, "I broke my leg." And so first thing they checked was the leg. I think the femur is what they thought it might be. So then when they checked that, they also checked their whole left side because he said his whole left side was hurting. So they checked the whole left side, and they gave him a I don't know what they gave him in terms of medicine, but they gave him some type of painkiller or something just to subside the pain. Because he even when they were trying to put him in the machine to do the scan, he couldn't sit still because he was in so much pain. So they gave him something just to try to help relax him. Finally, when he comes back out of the scan, he's sitting in the hospital bed. The doctor comes in and he says he kind of tried to say like basically, well, good news is your leg isn't broken. Bad news is that indeed you did dislocate your hip and there is a fracture on your hip bone. But he used the technical term, and then we were like, well, what does that mean? And he explained to us that it was a fracture on his hip bone. And then he basically said that what they were going to do was, since they cannot perform any type of like hip replacement surgery there, that they were going to at least relocate the hip, so put it back into place. And then he would have to go back to see a specialist to see about further treatment.
Okay. And going back to the ride over there and Brandon's concern, based on what you understood about Yellow Beezy at that time, did you believe Brandon's concern to be justified related to his life?
To be honest with you, like coming from Plano, I didn't know that he was as dangerous as everyone talked about. Like I thought like, okay, yeah, he's dangerous, but like we're still human beings. Like nobody really intends to hurt people. And like I was very naive to the situation. But like I did hear rumors about him causing certain people's unfortunate passing and being the
Objection,
catalyst.
Your Honor. This is hearsay, Your Honor.
Its effect on the witness and it's her understanding. Not
Okay,
that
our understanding.
Do I continue or?
Continue.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, I did hear stuff about that, and I think looking back on it, I was very naive to the reality of it because even the way I was arguing with the gentleman who came up to the car, that could have really ended really poorly for me, and I'm so grateful that it didn't, but I didn't realize how serious the situation was in the moment. It wasn't until really I was in the hospital and like I really thought about it where I had to leave the room several times. And till this day, Brandon doesn't even know that when I left the room, even though I was saying I was just grabbing some water, I was really in the hallway crying because I was like, I started shaking at one point. Getting him to the hospital, my adrenaline was rushing so much that I was more in like, okay, protection mode, make sure we get us safe and make sure that he gets taken care of, that I didn't realize how serious danger I was truly in the situation. It wasn't until I got to the hospital that I realized, and it caused me to break down and cry on two separate occasions. Sorry. It caused me to cry on two separate occasions because I just kept thinking about my family and his family, like what would have happened if something more serious would have happened to us that night.
And do you recall, if you recall approximately how long you were at the hospital initially?
It felt like hours, but if I really had to guess, maybe like 30 to 45 minutes.
And did you end up taking Brandon home early that morning?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And generally, what was Brandon's demeanor after the hospital stay in terms of or condition once you dropped them off at home?
Yeah, he was really down because the doctor had basically said that he may not be ever able to walk again the way he was walking before. And specifically he mentioned that he may not be able to like run. And that really hurt Brandon specifically because at the time his daughter was about to start basketball. And he was really excited about that. He was really excited to be able to like practice with her, help train her, and also just be there for her through different milestones. So he was really down about that, and he kept asking me questions like what do you think can happen? Like if I can't walk again, or if I can't run, like, is it like, what can I do? And I was just trying to give him like words of encouragement, saying like, no, you're going to be okay. We're going to go see the specialist, and they'll figure it out. And at this time, I pleaded with him again to call the police again. He opened up to me and said that, like, no, he can't do that, because indeed, when people call the police on people in this industry, there's two things that can happen. Either you can lose your life, or you can never work again in the city. And specifically, there's a stigma on people who are labeled as quote unquote snitches. And he said that he can't do that, both for the safety of his life, but also his livelihood, to be able to provide for his children and the rest of his family.
And as part of your duties and responsibilities with assisting Mr. Rainwater, do you follow kind of Black Dallas hip hop social media?
Yes, I have. I do, and I do have access to both his social media as well as Mo3. So I keep up to date on everything to be able to post different marketing things as well.
Okay. And was the incident that occurred on January the 26th, 2020 made public on social media?
It was.
Okay. And how was that framed in the social media world?
It was framed in a sense of Yella Beezy finally got a hold of somebody in Mo3's camp. Every posting had a picture of Yella Beezy on one side, Mo3 on the other side, and then it had the video of him saying like, I did it, like I beat him up, me by myself. Like he ran from one, you know.
Okay. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Exhibit 20. Your Honor, it's not in evidence yet. It is, in essence, the exact same video as 26, except it is not side by side with the surveillance video. It has also been proven up via admissions 22 through 29. I would ask that Exhibit 20 be admitted into evidence.
Okay, who took this video?
Somebody who was in the V-Live parking lot.
I'm going to object to this, Your Honor.
State your objection.
Yeah, I need a chance to review this, Your Honor, if I'm not recalling exactly what video this is and if it's been authenticated at all.
First off, it's been authenticated as being Mr. Conway in his deposition. Second off,
Stop. Mr. Conway did not take that video. In order to produce a video in court, it needs to be authenticated. We need to know who took the video, the date and time. And if the video has already been, portion of it produced, why do we need to see it again?
I'm only wanting to show to the jury the video without the surveillance at the side. So it shows what Miss Ibuike saw on the post, which didn't include the surveillance. It was just specifically that video, which has been deemed admitted to be authentic and a true and accurate copy of the recorded video, that it depicts Markies Deandre Conway speaking on January 26, 2020, moments after the assault made the basis of the lawsuit, that it accurately and correctly depicts what it purports to depict without alterations or removal of any audio or video, and that it accurately and correctly depicts statements made by Markies Deandre Conway moments after the assault made the basis of this lawsuit, and admit that Mr. Conway stated, N-word ran from one N-word, I beat him up. Also admitted that the statement N-word ran from one N-word refers to Brandon Rainwater. And also Conway admitted N-word.
Stop. So
Okay.
you're saying that as a result of deemed admissions, this video is already admitted? Is that your basis?
But on that basis, on the basis that it's substantively already in evidence. And the third basis is that Mr. Conway has also admitted that that's him in the video.
When did Mr. Conway admit that it was he who was appearing in the video?
In his deposition, Your Honor.
So in the deposition, how was this video marked?
Exhibit 2.
Did I get a response from you, Mr. Mathias? Or not? Are you trying to find out how it was marked in the video, in the deposition?
Exhibit 4 to Mr. Exhibit 2 to Mr. Conway's deposition.
Okay. And there was no objection during the deposition to this video?
No, Your Honor.
And help me again understand the purpose and how this is going to help my jury clarify what they've already seen.
It's showing the 26 basically confirms that this is, it syncs up with the surveillance. Okay. I'm wanting to ask Ms. Ibuweke the video that was widely disseminated that she saw, the specific post that she saw.
Okay, so this post wasn't generated by the witness.
Correct. Correct. This is post related to the assault on Mr. Rainwater that Ms. Ibuweke saw widely distributed on social media. Yeah, it's also statements of admissions of a party opponent.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let it in.
Thank you, Your Honor.
What's been identified as Exhibit 26 will be admitted.
26 is already in, Your Honor. Exhibit 20.
Number, Mr. Mathias, please.
Exhibit 20.
Okay, thank you. What's been identified as Exhibit 20 will be admitted.
Is the audio working, Your Honor?
It's not shared. You have to share your screen.
Thank you.
We're on it.
For real.
That's what you do back. All the internet bumping ass shit, nigga.
Oh, okay. Internet.
Nigga running. Nigga ran for one nigga. Nigga, I beat him up. Push the ass, nigga. Hey, come on, come on. Hey, do that.
Look that.
I didn't question it. I didn't question it. Hey, what he did to me? He did.
Hey,
Fuck that.
I know. You got too much teeth.
I'm gonna beat him.
I'm leaving, yo. Yeah, don't leave, bro.
Ms. Ibuweke, have you seen this video before?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you first see this video?
Well, I don't remember the specific day that I saw it, but I want to say it was either the day after the incident or maybe the following day.
And that was shared widely on social media in the context of as you described earlier, of Yellow Beezy beating up the manager of Mo3?
Yes, specifically, Mo3 was being tagged in it. So that's
I'm
really,
objecting, Your Honor, the relevance to this.
I'm going to allow it. Objection overruled.
so specifically, the way I was really notified about it was through Mo3's Instagram page. I was getting multiple notifications and tags in it, as well as DMs through it. Basically sending the video, the outlet that posted it, sending the video to Mo3. So that's how I became first privy to the video.
And how did the wide dissemination of this video, in your opinion, have an effect on Mr. Rainwater?
He was just really, really embarrassed on top of all the other injuries that he had suffered. At that point, it also became so widespread that his daughter even saw it. And his daughter even asked him specifically, like, wait, like what happened? Because at the time he hadn't told her that Yellow Beezy was the reason why he's not able to walk. So now she was old enough at the time, I believe she was about 9 years old. She was old enough to put 2 and 2 together and understand, okay, my dad is not walking and it's because of this specific individual. And so for him, it was really embarrassing for him, especially being a father of a young Black girl, to see that her father is being harmed by another young Black man. It was very hurtful for him. And it was also like, you can't really explain that to a child. Like, this person beat me up. Okay, the first thing they're going to ask is why? Honestly, there's no answer for that. No matter what could have possibly transpired, there's no reason to beat someone like a dog in the street and then leave them there to die. Like, there's just no excuse for that. And you can't even try to explain that to your child. So he was really hurt, really embarrassed by it. And even then, at that point, I asked him, like, please, like, let me call the police. Like, he needs to be held accountable. And he still refused, saying, like, you don't understand, Vanessa. Like, I know you come from a different, like, part of this world, but trust me, I know what can happen if I call the police. And then at that point, I basically said, okay, well, if you're not willing to call the police, at a minimum, he should take care of your medical bills. You heard what the doctor said, and you heard him say that it's going to be a long, long road for you. And like, it's not fair that you are going to be held responsible for that when you're not the one who beat yourself up in the street. That was his actions, and he needs to be held accountable. And not only that, what's going to stop him from doing this to someone else? That could have been me in the street. That could have been your mom. That could have been my brother.
Objection, Your Honor. This is speculative now at this point.
The objection overruled. I think she's explaining the basis for why she gave this advice to Mr. Rainwater. I'll allow it. Please continue.
Yeah. So specifically, I was trying to get him to understand how serious this is and why it's important to hold him accountable for what he did, because even if he refuses to call the police, at a minimum, there needs to be something done to at least try to inhibit him from doing this to someone else in the future, or even coming back and do it to him again.
And can you run us through, just from your perspective and your interaction with Mr. Rainwater, kind of the from the initial date of the assault ultimately till the time of surgery, just what was it like? How did Mr. Rainwater's life change from your perspective and what you saw?
Yes. So from my perspective, well, first off, he couldn't travel at all. Anytime he sat for longer than 5-10 minutes, he would be in pain. So that means any type of flight, any type of car ride was not possible. And I know this specifically because I was the one who was booking all of his travel arrangements. Outside of that, he also wasn't able to go to different shows that they were having. And keep in mind, at this time, Mo3 and Yellow Beezy were 2 of the most booked artists in Dallas at the time. And when I say that they were traveling, there was never a time where a weekend where they weren't on the road. And it was a good 6 to 8 months where he could not travel at all. Even if it was down the street from Dallas to Garland, he could not make that trip. So it affected him really severely in that sense. But for me, the biggest impact that I think I saw was his daughter had her first basketball game, and she scored her first points in that game. And he was not in attendance. And I saw the look on his face when she came home, and she was like excited to tell her dad about her first basket, her first bucket, and like what happened. And like while he was excited for her, you could tell as soon as she left and went to go into another room, he immediately asked his mom, like, did y'all get a video of it or anything? And unfortunately they didn't. And those are like precious moments that you can't get back. Like children grow so fast that as a parent, you want to be there for all of those milestones. And there's no dollar amount that can replace those moments that he missed with his daughter because of this. And I saw that firsthand. Like I saw tears coming out his eyes when he realized that he wasn't going to be able to attend the basketball game. And then whenever his daughter came back and said that to him, it was like you put the knife in the wound and you turn it. Like it was so hurtful for him. And I don't think I've ever seen Brandon that level of depression ever in my life, like ever.
And in terms of the day-to-day, did you see can you run us through kind of the progression in terms of what kind of limited mobility and ability to do certain things Brandon had prior to surgery and where he was ultimately before the decision was made to perform surgery?
Yes. So immediately coming home, they gave him crutches. So he was on crutches for a little bit, and he was constantly complaining about how painful it was on his underarms. And then eventually, as he was going to physical therapy, they gave him like one of those walkers that like old people used to help them get around. They gave him one of those, and I just remember him thinking like, I can't go out in public like this. Like people are already gonna be wondering what's wrong with me. Why can't I walk? And now I'm going around with a walker that my grandpa doesn't even use. Like, he wasn't able to walk without that. Eventually, as he was doing the physical therapy, he really wanted to get off of the walker to the point where his grandpa actually gave him one of his canes that he had, and he was using that for a little bit. But he wasn't even really able to run for the first, I would say, really, he probably would say that he was able to run a little bit after the surgery, but I saw him run. He was not able to run. Like it was bad. It was to the point where he really didn't want to have the surgery. And the doctor basically told him, like, if you don't have the surgery, then there's no chance of you ever being able to run again. And so he opted to do it. I remember the morning of the surgery, he was very scared. He was worried about like what was going to happen, and even if it was even going to make a difference whether or not he had the surgery, because the doctor had mentioned that although they would do the surgery now, he's probably going to have a follow-up surgery anywhere from 5 years to maybe 15 years down the road.
And can you give us kind of ideas? So the surgery ultimately happens in September. Just kind of give us an idea of what you saw in terms of changes with Brandon post surgery.
I did see him determined to try and get back to normal in terms of he was very consistent. He always went to every physical therapy appointment. He still struggled with riding in long car rides. And even till this day, if I book a flight for him, if it's longer than an hour, I have to make sure it has extra leg room. And even then, he still has to get sometimes a wheelchair. If it's basically, I would say anything past 2 hours, a wheelchair has to assist him when he lands. He's okay getting on the plane, but once he lands, a wheelchair does I need to come and assist him. And so typically when I book the flight, I have to then also go through the like handicap protocol in terms of making sure that there is a wheelchair available for him once he lands. And then it's really unfortunate if he flies to a place late at night and they don't have the personnel to be able to support with that. Because typically if you don't use the wheelchair on the way there, they don't account for it when you're leaving. So we learned that early on whenever he would take a flight longer than 2 hours and he didn't take the wheelchair there and he got there late, he didn't have a wheelchair to get back, and literally strangers would basically have to help him off the plane.
And ultimately, how is this incident that occurred January 26, 2020 impacted Mr. Rainwater as a person?
It's honestly, this has been the biggest change in his life, to be honest with you. Even with him having 5 children, this has been the biggest change in his life. Specifically, before this incident, he was always a very upbeat person. He was always looking for the good in people. Now he kind of has to look over his shoulder everywhere he goes in fear that somebody is going to either attack him like the way he was attacked that day or even worse. He also has to have security. Now, before this event, Brandon never had security. There was never a time he would go anywhere with security. Mo3 would have security and some of his other artists would have security, but Brandon would be by himself. He would even tell you he doesn't like to be around a lot of guys. He considers himself a ladies' man. Like if anybody's with him, it's going to be a woman. It's not going to be security. It's not going to be other men. That's the way he prefers to travel. Now, anytime he goes somewhere, he needs to have some type of security with him just in case he runs into anybody who means to do harm to him.
Sibuike, I believe those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Valles, Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Vanessa, a couple of questions, please. You said that you were with Mr. Rainwater at Ecstasy, correct? Before he went to Be Live?
Correct.
Okay. He walked and you drove?
Correct.
What was the time gap difference between of when he took off and then you said that you drove off with the vehicle?
I'm going to be honest with you. That was so long ago. I don't want to say a time that isn't accurate. It was more than 5 years ago, so I can't really pinpoint the exact time. I can say that I can tell you what I did in between the time that I left him and the time that I arrived when I picked him up. And that's I took the ticket to valet. It did take a little bit for them to get my car pulled around. I pulled out and then I came out on the street on the frontage road. I drove down, made a U-turn, came to the light, and then you saw the video where I pulled up. Those are the steps that I took, but I can't put a time frame on it, unfortunately, for you.
Okay. But you did not see any of the events that took place at all involving the altercation, did you?
I think we all did in the video that was
But
played
no,
earlier.
as far as an eyewitness being there.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood your question.
Yes,
Yes, no, I was not an eyewitness to the actual attack.
Okay, and you were not a witness to any of the events that took place leading up to that, correct?
Correct, I was not a witness to that.
Okay, and you were not present or a witness to anything that took place of when Mr. Rainwater walked up to the building or was standing there at the building, correct?
No.
Okay. Did you see anybody following you after that? When you drove to the hospital?
Yeah, so when I first pulled out of V Live, I did see a car that looked like it was following us, but I was able to lose them. It was like kind of like a SUV looking car. It was a dark color. I couldn't tell you. I'm not really good with cars, to be honest with you. But I was able to lose them on the highway.
Okay, but past that, there was no other threats that you knew of?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you for coming in to testify today.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sign off. What about your next witness?
Sorry, do I log out or something? What do I do?
Look in the
Okay.
bottom right hand side of your screen. It should say leave meeting.
Okay, I got it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Dr. Merritt.
Trying to see if we can take our next witness or if this is the time to break for lunch, but
It should be approximately 45 minutes. It's deposition. It's video deposition, Your Honor.
I think then we might have to stop maybe by 1 and take a break, but let's go ahead and get started because lunch is okay.
Plaintiff calls Dr. John Merritt by video deposition.
You raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Your Honor, just verifying you can hear the.
We're here for the procedure. We're here for the procedure. Dr. Merritt, can you please state your full name for the record?
It's John, John, Lawrence, Lawrence, Merritt, Merritt, 2 R's and 2 T's.
Your Honor, can everybody hear?
Oh, I hear something in the background. I think that's the attorney. Yeah, we can hear. We can hear the
Okay.
doc.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure. And Dr. Merritt, where did you attend medical school?
You Rick?
Where did you attend medical school?
Attended medical school at the Medical College of South Carolina in Charleston, South Carolina.
And where did you do your residency?
After medical school, I moved to the other USC out in Southern California, where I did an internship and a residency at Huntington Memorial Hospital, which is part of the University of Southern California system. I did that in internal medicine. After finishing internal medicine training, I moved north to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, where I did another residency in physical medicine and rehabilitation.
And where are you licensed to practice medicine?
Currently in Florida.
And how long have you been practicing?
I've been practicing medicine since nearly 50 years. Finished medical school in 71. So after residencies, I had 5 years of residency. That would put me in 1974. So it'd be 49 years of practicing medicine.
And do you have any board certifications?
Yes, sir. I'm board certified in internal medicine. I'm board certified in physical medicine rehabilitation. I'm also board certified in brain injury medicine and board certified in spinal cord injury medicine.
And in reviewing your CV, it lists that you're a senior disability analyst and diplomat for the American Board of Disability Analysts 2014. What is that?
Yes, sir. That is another certification. It's not a residency, say, but it's a certification by that organization, which evaluates doctors who do disability and impairment evaluations and compares them to a standard practice. So we submit evaluations to that, and they evaluate those, and then either accept us or in this case, accepted us to that certification.
And can you briefly just explain to the jury the scope of practice of a board certified specialist in physical medicine and rehab?
Yes, physical medicine rehabilitation is one of the smaller medical specialties, and it's a medical specialty that's focused on evaluation of people with diseases and injuries that result in functional impairments, such as mobility, activities of daily living, pain. It includes spinal cord injury and brain injury medicine, musculoskeletal injuries, amputations, joint injuries, arthritis, and then we evaluate and then perform treatments, which includes rehabilitation, which includes a team of people, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, psychologists, other rehab professionals, and we provide additional medicines, equipment, prescriptions for assistive devices, and then continue to follow people with those disabilities to see that they are able to achieve their optimal function even with their existing.
And Dr. Merritt, I'm going to share my screen with you what we'll mark as Exhibit 2 to your deposition. And have you seen this document before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this is the curriculum vitae for Dr. Merritt, dated December 10th, 2022.
Yes, sir. That's the current CV. Yes, sir.
Okay, and this is a 32-page document which outlines your experience in the field of medicine and life care and future cost projections, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the information in this document is true and accurate?
Yes, sir.
And was this document kept by you in the regular course of your ordinarily conducted business?
Yes, sir. I update it usually once a year. Sometimes if I'm doing international presentations or a book chapter or something, I'll add that in there and maybe update it another additional time a year, but it's updated once or more times per year.
And you have personal knowledge of all the contents in this document, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Dr. Merritt, can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a future cost projection is?
Yes, a future cost projection is it's a process of applying a methodological analysis of a person who has had injuries or diseases which result in future cost, and that includes a methodology that we use, which includes evaluating the medical records, evaluating the diagnoses and the impairments, and the whole purpose is then to project an accurate listing of diagnosis and impairments of the person, and then based on my over 40 years of experience with those conditions, to project out the kinds of needs they would have in various categories, such as diagnostic testing, imaging testing, surgeries and procedures, medical, surgical, and rehabilitative consultations, medicines, equipment, and other kinds of needs the person would need over their lifetime, and of course determining if it's a permanent condition, and if so, then determining their life expectancy, and using that in the tables to calculate the experiences over the lifetime. And this provides a scientific method of providing the most appropriate cost analysis for the future, rather than just pulling a number out of the air. There's a science behind this, and this is all published methodology. It's been critiqued and is monitored by the societies that certify and regulate this.
And how long have you been involved in drafting future cost projections?
About 15 years. On a regular basis. I would do a few a year, back before that, but I began to do more in about 15 years ago.
And what specific training is required in order to draft the future cost projection?
Well, there are courses that we take that provides a training in it. There's also textbooks that are available, and there's also an organization that provides training and ongoing education for that. And I'm a member of the three different organizations that provide this ongoing education and training and interaction with other people who are doing the same kinds of things.
And is the methodology that you described a moment ago regarding future cost projection, is that the same methodology that you utilized related to Mr. Rainwater?
Yes, sir, it is.
And you believe that your testimony will be helpful in assisting the jury in understanding the types of medical treatment, prescriptions, and equipment Mr. Rainwater is likely to require in the future as a result of the injuries he suffered to his hip and back?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, can you briefly describe the materials? We'll start with the materials that were reviewed in order to draft a future cost projection for Mr. Rainwater.
Yes, I first reviewed a set of records that was several hundred pages, and then later was provided another several hundred pages of records, which included X-rays of his, included imaging. It included his visits to physicians and hospital and procedures that he had.
And can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the importance of medical record review in terms of the preparation of a future cost projection will it plays?
Yes, sir, it's essential. I mean, that's where we find what the injury was, what its consequence is, what kinds of complications he's had, and what kinds of procedures he would have had, and the timeline also of those things.
And you also performed a physical evaluation and functional assessment of Mr. Rainwater, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when did that evaluation occur?
That was done on June the 28th, 2022, a year projection.
And can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a physical evaluation and functional assessment entails?
Yes, sir. It's very much like going in to see your doctor for an initial visit. You know, it's usually lasts an hour and a half, and I start off making sure that he understands what we're doing and why, and then we go with what are your chief complaints, like, you know, what are the kind of things that are bothering you now, and I actually type these things in real time while he's telling me that. I later go back and edit it, you know, for spelling errors and things, but he tells me what he had, and then I tell him I've read the records, but I want to know about the injury and the history of what we call the history of present illness from you. So then he then continues to go over the history as he has, and then we do the usual things. What is your past surgical history, past medical history, any previous traumas, medications, allergies, social situation, family history, habits, activities of daily living, exercise programs, and then after that we do our usual 18 systems review, what we call medical review of systems, and then after that we will and I left out here, and then I also include in there physical limitations. What are the things that he has problem doing from his history, and what was it like before? And then after that, we examine the patient and look at his demeanor, look at his station and his posture, his speech, and then do range of motion of his neck and his back and his upper extremities and lower extremities. And then in this case, I have him do some special gait things such as tandem walking and toe and heel walking. And then evaluate his gait. And then I actually make videos of those things, which is provided along with the report. And so that's the history and the physical examination. And from that, then I go and look again at the diagnoses and upgrade those as need to be, and then list what risk he is likely to have based on my 45 years of experience with these kinds of injuries. And then compare that with then I go back to the table that has the cost on it and see if there's any changes that are needed or any upgrades that need to be done.
And are you of the opinion that you were able to competently review this patient for the purpose of providing a future cost projection for Mr. Rainwater related to the injuries he suffered as a result of the January 26, 2020 assault?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and will you be rendering an expert opinion as to the necessity of future medical care for Mr. Rainwater and the costs associated for such treatment?
Yes, sir.
And what did you learn related about the patient's history as it pertains to the January 26, 2020 injury?
What did I learn?
What about the patient's how did the patient's history play? What did you learn?
Yes. Well, first I learned what his current complaints are, the kind of things he's experiencing. That's not necessarily in the history. So, and he reported that he has pain in his left hip and his left groin that is constant, that interferes with his activities. He has pain in his lower back and a sciatic kind of pain that goes from his left lower back into the left thigh. He has problems sleeping. He has tightness in the hip, and he has limited physical activities. And from his history, he described the assault that occurred on January 26, 20, and what happened and where he went, and then the subsequent cares of that. That he reported that his hip was dislocated, and it was put. He describes it as put back in place, and then given crutches, but he continued to have pain for another month or two, improving some at first, but then gradually getting worse, particular pain at night, and that he was having problem working. And then later he went in for further evaluations with imaging and all. Then it showed he had avascular necrosis of the hip. And then it was recommended that he have a total hip arthroplasty, which he describes that he had that about 8 months afterwards. And then he tells me that even after the total hip arthroplasty, that improved the pain somewhat, but not completely. But then it has reached a plateau and is really not improved over the last year or two. And that he continues to walk with a limp, and that he tells me that he had no limitations before the assault and was healthy and active. Then he tells me the kinds of things he could that he can't do that he liked to do. He mentioned he was very physically active before. He liked to play basketball, and he played basketball about 3 times a week. And now he can't do that because he can't jump. He can't move fast. It causes pain. He's particularly concerned about because he's an agent for musical performers, and so he required a great deal of travel, and that now he has problem flying because of the pain he gets as he's sitting a long time, and he can't fly regular anymore. He has to either get a first class or business seat, which is more expensive, and that he's actually had to buy a Sprinter van to travel with that as opposed to flying. And then he mentions that he used to do a lot of walking, but now he can only walk about a mile, and then he gets sharp pain into the hip and back, has to sit down and rest before he can go any further. And he mentions that well, I guess I already mentioned when he tries to run, he gets a sharp pain in the front and in the groin, so that limits his ability to run. can't do push-ups very well anymore, can't bend very well, and can't really squat down fully.
All right, Mr. Matthias, I think this is a good.
And what were the medical diagnoses that you gleaned?
I think it's a good time to stop the video. Let's take a lunch break. It is now 12:57. We can try to get back around 1:35, 1:40. And please don't leave this Zoom meeting. Just mute yourself on both audio and video.
Understood.